Hello, it's Gordon here, and it's World Mental Health Day today, and I've been sharing a blog post from my site which had 3 YouTube videos that I made a couple of years ago, and I thought, well, why don't I do a Facebook Live about it? Because Facebook Live was sort of in its infancy back then, or I certainly wasn't using it back then. So I thought I would do. There is some scaffolding noise going on outside. Hello Emma, Emma's watching. Talking about some scaffolding noise going on outside. And I thought about saying to them, I say, could you burly lads maybe make that tiresome noise a little bit later? But I've decided against it. So we're going to have to put up with the scaffolding noise. So in this Facebook Live, I'm going to do sort of like a précis of the 3 videos that I've put up on YouTube. If you want to look at the videos themselves, then obviously you can go to my YouTube channel /The Great Gordino, and you'll type in depression and you'll find them there. And the 3 videos were depression and the power of the nothing thought, depression and why I'm giving you the finger, and depression, rainbows and sequins. So in this précis, I'm going to cover the main point in each of the 3 of them, because they're quite important points. They're to do with what happens when you've got it, what happens with dealing with other people who've got it, and what people think about depression. So, depression and the power of the nothing thought. And it's always said that it's hard to describe what depression is like to people who haven't had it. And people who haven't had it might think, I don't know. But then when they've had it, they think, yes, that's true. So it sort of proves the point. But the nothing thought is that you can, how can I describe it without going into that detail I went to in that video? It's basically an overwhelm of thoughts. And it's normally an overwhelm of bad thoughts, of dark thoughts, of black thoughts. And as you get overwhelmed by these thoughts, you sort of numb yourself down, you gradually shut yourself off, and you end up numbing with this nothingness, a blankness in life. Which, as you can imagine, is a problem. But the power of the nothing thought can also be part of the cure. Because this is what I found, by the way, in my experience, that when you get this muddle of thoughts, look at them as clouds passing by. You don't try and force them away. You don't try and pretend that they're not there. But you just think, okay, there's that muddle of thoughts. They're there. I'm just going to acknowledge that they're there, but I'm not going to engage with them. And what that does is it helps to, not to push them away, because we're not trying to force them away. It helps them on their way. So we can leave this relaxing nothing thought as part of the recovery, rather than the oppressive, numb, blank nothing thought, which is part of the problem. Emma is saying the black dog always reminds me of Winston Churchill. Yes, Winston Churchill always said that the black dog sat on his lap all the time and followed him around. He wasn't the first person to talk of associating the black dog and black dogs with bad things, but society in general tends to associate that phrase, the black dog, with Winston Churchill. So that's the power of the nothing thought. Now, when it comes to depression and why I'm giving you the finger, well, it's that finger, the bent one, not the finger you might be thinking. It's that bent one. And it's bent because in 1997, I cut through it with a knife down to the bone when I was peeling a potato. And it got stitched up. Emma, I'm currently dealing with mixed anxiety and depression. Well, you might relate to a lot of this that I'm saying, and some of the cures. The cures is not the right word. The solutions. Let's put it like that. Yes, I cut down to the bone and I thought, ow, that hurt. And when they sewed it back together, stitched it back together and physio and all the rest of it, they said, your finger's going to end up bent eventually. But it had to be in this cage. I had this cage around my left hand. This was in 1997, by the way, so that's 10, 20 years ago. A cage around my left hand for 6 weeks. So as I was going around doing my daily life with this protective cage around my hand, people said to me, what's that cage around your hand for? And I said, oh, because I cut through my finger. And they said, oh, okay, I understand. Now, no one said to me, what's that cage doing around your finger, you nutter? No one said to me, you don't need a cage around your finger. All you need to do is type the complete works of Shakespeare and your finger will be okay. No one said that, because people understood that I'd done a physical injury, it was going through recovery and needed looking after. So because everyone understood it, no one questioned it or judged me. I didn't have to justify myself. And we find that that's the case with physical injuries. But with mental health, oh, that's a whole different ballgame. Because people will say to you, oh, pull your socks up. It's not that bad. Oh, suck it up and get on with it. Don't be such a wuss. Emma is saying that I understand. Just some sort of acknowledgement is really helpful. Exactly. If someone says to you that they've got depression or that they've got anxiety or they think they might be going through anxiety or depression, don't say to them, get on with it. Don't say to them, well, nonsense, pull your socks up. Because that is exactly the same as saying to me with my finger, type the complete works of Shakespeare with it and you'll be fine. Had someone said that to me with my finger, how do you think that would have made me feel? So if you say to someone who says they think they've got depression or they think they've got anxiety, if you say to them, pull your socks up and get on with it, how do you think that makes them feel? You're dismissing what they're telling you. You're not hearing what they're telling you. And what that does is it makes it worse for that person because they withdraw, they get more and more introverted and they soak it up themselves, and it perpetuates this vicious circle going downwards. Yes, Emma, that just feeds the negative feelings, exactly. And one of my quote images, which I'll share again later, is saying that sometimes the best healing that you can give is just to listen. I remember Spike Milligan saying this, who had ferocious, horrendous depression for pretty much all of his life. You just need someone to listen. And the more that I've spoken, I mean, I've been speaking about depression for, 20 years since I went through the recovery process. And people say, oh, wow, what, don't you feel odd talking about it? There's this taboo about it. I said, well, no, I don't feel odd about it because I didn't feel odd talking about how I recovered from cutting through my finger. And it's a mental health problem in the same way that that's a physical health problem. And people say there's still this taboo about depression and mental health. Well, there kind of is, but I start to wonder if people saying that there's a taboo is what's left of the taboo. That maybe we should stop saying there's a taboo about it. The fact that on World Mental Health Day and Suicide Prevention Month and etc., people will share their stories and share advice about what to do means that taboo is disappearing. Yes, Emma, these things get internalised and absorbed, and that's what can be really dangerous. And that's why it's important to get it out there. And not only to listen to someone if they're trying to talk to you about it. If you think you've got it, talk to someone else. Because what helped for me was a combination of talk therapy and chemical therapy. In other words, the happy pills. And by the way, one of the first people I suggest you talk to is your GP. Because as I often say in my videos, I've got no medical qualifications whatsoever, and I don't pretend to have. But what I have got is anecdotal evidence. In other words, my experience. And my experience was that going to a GP was extremely important to me and was a turning point. So go and see your GP. Don't be embarrassed or feel silly about it. Believe me, there's nothing that's going to embarrass or make a GP feel silly. They've seen and heard the lot. Don't you worry about that. Emma, lucky to have a good relationship with your GP and have lots of support there. Great. Now, I've gone through, I don't have a family GP at the moment because I've moved around for years and years and years. And touch wood, my physical health is good. So I don't need to go and see a doctor. If I do need to go and see a doctor, who knows who I'm going to get. But even then, when I've had wobbles and gone to a GP, I've had the understanding and response that I would expect to get. So I would always recommend going to see your GP. And if you're not comfortable seeing your family GP, go and see someone else. Go and see another GP. Okay, now the third of those 3 videos, I've already covered depression and the power of the nothing thought. I've already covered depression and why I'm giving you the finger. And the third video I made a couple of years ago, brackets, all still on YouTube, close brackets, was depression, rainbows and sequins. Now another one of my favourite phrases of mine is, life isn't always rainbows and sequins. So when it is, soak those suckers up. And the point of that phrase is that we need to make sure that we enjoy the good things in life, the abundance that we have around us in the here and the now, the abundance and the joy we've had in the past, the abundance and the joy we're going to have in the future. When it comes along, don't just shrug your shoulders at it. Enjoy it, soak it up, relish it. Emma, yes, I can resonate with moving around. Moved in May and took a few months to find the right GP. Yes, definitely, see another if you're not getting what you want from your GP. So yes, rainbows and sequins. Soak up the rainbows and sequins when they come, because life isn't always rainbows and sequins. And clearly I know what I'm talking about because I've had depression to the point where I was looking over the abyss of suicide 20 years ago. So I know how very much not rainbows and sequins life can be. And when you've got depression, as part of this, the power of the nothing thought thing, acceptance is a huge part on the road to recovery. So if you accept what you've got and you understand what you've got, it helps to move on from it. So you don't get rid of anxiety. In my experience and what I found, you don't get rid of anxiety and depression by focusing on the rainbows and sequins. That didn't work for me. That might work for other people. It didn't work for me. What did help was not to focus on the bad, but to accept that that bad period was happening to me. Does that make sense? And then you can employ what I call a batten down the hatches approach, which in the years since, if I get a wobble, if I get a mental health wobble, and because I know what it is, I can recognise it and acknowledge it, I then go into batten down the hatches mode, where I'm not focusing on the rainbows and sequins, I'm not focusing on the bad, but I acknowledge that that bad bit is happening. Employ this power of the nothing thought, recognise what's happening and just wait for it to pass. Emma says finding a few things per day that you can really do helps. And Emma says enjoy doing the music posts, which I have in my Facebook group, the Great Gordino newsletter. Yes, thank you, Emma. I love music. Music touches the soul, doesn't it? One quote image I've had, another one, is from, who was it? Where words fail, music speaks. Hans Christian Andersen, that's who it was. Where words fail, music speaks. And they say music can touch the soul, and it can bring people together, can't it? It can really connect. So sometimes maybe you can listen to music with someone who's talking about anxiety and depression. Listen to their choice of music, and it'll bring a feeling of connection for them. Emma, yes, there's something about acceptance that is really vital. The more we kick and scream and battle with the thoughts, the worse it becomes. Yes. And when I first was going through it, I found that that's what I was doing. I was trying to think my way out of it. And I was having this rush, adrenaline surge through my body 24 hours a day. And I was trying to think myself out of it. And because I couldn't think myself out of it, that produced more adrenaline, which I then tried to force away and think myself out of, which failed, producing more adrenaline. Whereas, once you know about acceptance and letting it happen, that will lessen the adrenaline in and of itself. So it's really important, rather than trying to, if you imagine a bathtub full of water, I don't know where I'm going with this, it might work, it might not. If you imagine a bathtub full of water, and that water is the adrenaline surge around your body, imagine trying to scoop out the water of the bathtub with both your hands. You're not going to get very far, and you're going to get frustrated about it. Isn't it better just to pull the plug and let the adrenaline flow away? Yeah, I'm not sure that works. It sort of does. I know what I mean anyway. So yes, crikey, I've gone on longer than I thought. I'm going to wrap it up. The idea was to do a quick summary of those 3 videos. So yes, recognise what you've got. If someone else talks to you about depression, listen to them, don't prejudge them. And when you've got depression, accept that it's not very nice, but hundreds and thousands of people come through depression through a combination of talk therapy and or chemical therapy. So there's no reason why you can't as well. End up feeling like I'm circling a whole bunch of cortisol, Emma. Yes. Very much so. And oh, it's a relief when it starts to lessen and you can get past it. Wow. And I found that's why I want to talk about it, because I want to help others. My message has always been one of positivity and self-improvement and goal achievement. But again, because life isn't always rainbows and sequins, you've got to talk about the bad. So when the bad comes along, and for me, the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and I got through it, why wouldn't I want to pass on how you might be able to get through it if you've got it or had it, or you might be able to help someone get through it if they've got it, because living with someone who's got it can be horrendous and stressful, as well as the person who's having it, the people who are living with the person who's got it. It can be as much of a hell for them as well. It's because I'm talking on here. Enjoyed your video as always, Gordon. Thank you very much, Emma. Always good to engage with you. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment below this video if what I've said makes sense, or if you've got any comments or queries, or there's something you didn't understand. And if you think there's value in this message, do feel free to hit that little old share button, because I think there's value in my message, which is why I rattle on about them over and over again. So if that message will help someone else, then get it shared, particularly on World Mental Health Day. Always empowering to hear how you made your way through it. Yes, because that's what I found. I found help by hearing how other people had got through it. So I know that it's me talking about it will help someone. Might not help everyone, but it will help someone. And I know for a fact that people talk to me about online and offline, about their depression and anxiety, because they know that I'm going to listen to them. They know I'm not going to judge them. They know I'm not going to tell them to suck it up. And they know that if they ask me for advice, I'm going to give it to them, but I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm going to say, well, this worked for me. It might work for you. Have you thought about giving that a go? So there we go. A little video, which was not as little as I thought it might be, but hey ho, that's the way it goes with a Facebook Live for World Mental Health Day. I hope all is well with you, mentally and physically, and I will speak to you again soon.